You're listening to the Living Mandala podcast. My name is Aura. And the series continues. Here we are with Color and the Living Mandala. I am joined by Nicole Cullum here from Caravan. And we are going to start this series with, drum roll please, red. We're going to start with red.
Beautiful red.
So red. So let's talk about red, and let's begin kind of just nice and easy. What are we talking about when we say red? What's kind of the range of red, do you think?
So red for me, we always immediately go to that like lipstick red, that bright, luscious, beautiful red. But red also spans blush, pinks, deep, maroons. It has such a range. When you add white to red, that is a tint. That's where you get your blushes. When you add gray, it's a tone. And then when you add black, it's a shade. And that's where you fall into the deeper elements of red, the more reddish browns, the dark reds. So that's kind of the span of red.
Pinks all the way to burgundies.
Pretty much. Wine reds, yeah.
Right, all the way through. And then, red, in thinking about like, okay, well, where does red show up in nature? Well, immediately what comes to mind is, flowers and fire and albino eyes and, things like that. But, birds, I'm thinking of cardinals. I'm thinking of things in nature that are
food.
Red. There's a lot of red food. You're right, apples and tomatoes, and red is a very prominent color in nature, but it's as with all these colors, as we're going to find out, how do you harness that color to then be able to do something with it, to make a painting, to make fabric, to dye fabric, to and this is where right now we just go to the Sherwin-Williams and we order our red in whatever shade we want. But people before Sherwin-Williams had to somehow harness that color to be able to use it.
Mm-hmm. Red has such an interesting history. This one is just, it's so embedded in our human history. So red is one of the primary colors besides yellow and blue, and it was one of the first colors that was found in Paleolithic art. So you think, 40,000 years ago, Stone Age hunters, they would gather up red clay that had the mineral hematite in it, and they would grind that up and they would add water to it, and they would paint caves, or many times it was found that they would throw red dust on their deceased, right? Egyptians used red in their tombs. It was a reflection of the sun god. They would use it as rouge on their cheeks, they found. So red has been a lot of times associated with blood and vitality, but also for our ancestors as afterlife.
Fascinating. And so, in order to get red into a color, that you can use, you were saying, these dusts and these rocks and things, but then, it's just, I don't know, it's just such a leap to me to be able to use it like in a painting, or to dye fabric or make beautiful pillows or whatever.
So, was it a mineral or was it an organic thing? So there's, in pigment, a lot of it was mineral based. So you have vermilion or hematite as the mineral base of these pigments that you find in paintings. But then you move to the textile aspect of it. And so you have tiny little creatures, these little bugs. Cochineal or lilac is the Indian version of this tiny little bug. And they would, when Columbus landed in South America, he encountered the Aztecs, who had this brilliant fabric, red fabric, which was such a luxury in Europe. And they thought, they had struck gold with this. And cochineal grows on a cacti in South America and Mexico. And they harvest these tiny little creatures and they dry them and then they crush them. And that makes a brilliant, deep red. And cochineal pretty much funded the Spanish Empire. Like they put the lockdown on cochineal and brought it back. They would harvest these tiny little bugs and they would sail across the Atlantic Ocean, and they had, major dye industry over there. And they would dye brilliant reds with cochineal. And everybody wanted a piece of this. This is pretty much it's such a major part of our human history that we don't know. And it was called bayeta. And bayeta was then shipped, bolts of bayeta were shipped back to the Americas. They found their way into Native American blankets. The aristocracy coveted this red because it was much more color fast and a deeper red than the Indian lac dye. So red has such a deep, embedded meaning in our culture, not only in religious aspects, but in commercial aspects.
Cool. I have two comments. Number one, cochineal is also the name of a fantastic restaurant if you're ever in Marfa, Texas.
That's right. I've been there. We have been there.
We have been there many times, actually, to Cochineal, the restaurant. But also, I'm just intrigued by this idea of the bugs, making their way across the Atlantic Ocean back and forth to inform multiple different cultures, right? It's like, humans never sort of fail to astonish me in their ability to exchange ideas, and cultural exchange is just so fun, whether it be spices, whether it be dances, whether it be religions, or whether it's food. But in this case, little teeny bugs that give you a fantastic red color on your Navajo blankets.
Well, and this is part of where the English and Spanish friction comes from, because Britain colonized India, and lac, the lac bug, is native to India, whereas Spain went to the Americas and cochineal is native to South America.
Fascinating.
Right. And the cochineal had a deeper color, a richer color, and it stuck, it bit into the textile, as they say, more. And Europeans love that deeper red, whereas the lac is more of a brighter orangey base.
Wow. Cool. So red, yeah, interesting history. Let's move into kind of the spiritual and religious dimensions. I mean, just touching lightly on the spiritual dimensions of red. Of course, if you've been listening to this podcast, the Living Mandala podcast, surely you caught the Chakras of the House series with the Muladhara chakra. That is the bottom chakra. It's the lower field, below the perineum, the base of the spine. It's the chakra that really helps us ground and be centered. And it's also associated with the color red. Red in terms of the vibrational qualities, physical vibrational qualities of, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. They are, I'm thinking about my chemistry background, with, using like a mass spectrometer is a piece of equipment, in the laboratory to really understand that the wavelength of red and the wavelength of violet at the other end are very different. And of course, beyond, what our visible eyes can see, there's the ultraviolet area, but then there's also, all of the, I'm having a brain infrared. I'm having a brain fart. Infrared, which is like, it's like super lower speeds, if you will, than red itself. So, so the visible color spectrum, is anchored down there at the lowest vibration with the color red. And so red is a potent color in terms of the spiritual dimensions, but also by the same token in, sort of the religious dimensions as well, which I know you've done, a lot of pondering about as well.
Yes. So the religious aspects of red are fascinating. So if you want to throw it way back to Egyptian civilization, they associated red with the god of the sun. They used it in their art. They painted their bodies with it in ceremonial aspects. It was associated with architecture. In Christianity, red is associated with the crucifixion and the devil.
Ooh.
Right. But plot twist here, because then they actually began equating later in Europe, they equated red with aristocracy and the clergy. So actually the name for the cardinal is derivative from the color red.
Oh, far out.
And the clergy wears red, like cardinals wear red. Bishops have aspects of red in their robes. So I think they kind of translated the blood of Christ into their actual...
The cloak of Christ.
Cloak, right. In Judaism, red symbolizes blood and sin. But in Hinduism, red represents sensuality and purity. So it's fascinating to see the range, no pun intended, across cultures of how we react and embody each color.
Well, and, just leaping off of what you're saying, I'm thinking of Mary Magdalene. She's associated with red, with more of like a, lady of the night. That's not she was not a prostitute, for the record, but, it's not a leap to associate her with prostitution, because the church has done so for centuries. Purposely, yeah. But then, that even brings me to the Scarlet Letter. We all read that at some point in our schooling, and, just this red mark of you're a bad girl, essentially, coming off of that, which is, obviously associated with those religious undertones. Moving on with red, thinking about the emotional dimension. So we've talked about the spiritual dimensions, the religious dimensions, but what about the emotional dimension?
Well, this is fascinating because you were talking about, Mary Magdalene and her positive or negative associations with that color in the Scarlet Letter, and red as an emotion, because we have the pale pinks, but we also have the deep burgundies. There's also a range of emotions connected with red. It can be love. We give each other red roses, and Valentine's Day is all filled with pinks and reds. It's romantic love. It's deep passion. It can also be associated with lust, right? Mm-hmm. So you have kind of that sensuality, sexuality aspect to the deeper reds. But the fiery reds can also be associated with anger. They are associated with war. Mars, the god of war, is red, the planet red. So it's blood, it's power, it's strength, aggression, but it's also passion and love, and fascinating things happen in the body when we look at red, right?
Right. And when we wear red, fascinating things happen for ourselves. Wearing red is actually very helpful for getting your strength back. So if you haven't been feeling well or you're feeling sluggish, putting red on your body can help you get your strength back. For me, space clearings, I do space clearings wearing red. It's a very good color. It brings that like intensity to the experience of space clearing. But you were talking about, how it's also associated with war and blood. It's got some really negative connotations as well. And, for people who can read auric fields, dark red in an auric field is associated with anger. Maroon in an auric field is associated with hatred. Isn't that interesting? And a deep muddy red in the field indicates a misuse of sexual energy. And then, of course, a ruby red, that's you're talking about all these different, kind of this spectrum of reds. A ruby red can be seen in an auric field sometimes, and that's really more associated with what you're saying, strength and vitality in the auric field.
I think it comes down to the clarity of color, especially with auras, right? So dirty colors, as she calls them, unenlightened colors. And what I'm particularly referring to is the Barbara Martin book, Change Your Aura, Change Your Life.
I have it too.
Look at that. I just love this book. Because she ranges. Like, she says deep rose, which is kind of like a hot pink, which is totally in there, is love and compassion. That ruby red is vitality and athleticism. Carnation red is orange, it's energy. But then you have what she calls vitiated red or vitiated red,
Yeah.
which is lust and anger. So these negative emotions cloud the color, and they lower the vibration of that pure red color.
Right. So, emotional dimensions, but also, we're tiptoeing into, the physical dimensions when we're talking about seeing it in our field and, these different, human emotions that are experienced with it. So, transitioning slightly into, and then let's talk about some of your classical design ideas with red, like how it's going to show up in somebody's house.
Right. So I love red in particular. Red affects us. Red has an actual physiological effect on our bodies. It increases our heart rate. It increases our blood pressure. It raises our metabolism and our respiration rate. It also increases our appetite. So with that knowledge, how do we use red in our homes?
Great question. I could already be thinking of
And there's this fascinating study by Ohio University that said that red forces our eyes into a more convex shape, which literally means red brings it forward. I mean, that's why we use red as like stop signs, right? Red is the first color after black and white that babies see.
Right.
Red, green, colorblind, all of these aspects. So red is just such a super potent color for us, not only emotionally, but in our bodies. So we have to be really careful and thoughtful of how we use it in interior design. So red is an action color. It is energetic. It stimulates things in our bodies. It stimulates appetites. So deep reds in particular are wonderful. This is why you see so many red dining rooms, because those deeper reds not only create a sense of security, but they increase our appetite. So we like to eat with deeper reds. Now, you don't really want to put red in, you don't want to put that bright red in a nursery. No. It would overwhelm you, right? It would overwhelm the baby, because that's the first thing after black and white that babies see. You don't want to put it in bedrooms. It's too high energy. Now, add white to that, and you get like a super pale pink in those pretty blush tones. Those are fine in bedrooms. And actually, really light blushes can be considered a neutral. But red can, in its deeper or brighter forms, is active. So think about a gym. Think about an accent wall. Think about maybe, let's say, calmer tones with earth browns included in it to just tone it down. Are good accent colors in like pillows or textiles. But you also don't want to put red in a home office. It's hard to concentrate around red.
It is.
It actually doesn't help us concentrate on quiet tasks because it's an active color.
Wow, that's awesome. And, I'll dip into the feng shui side of the house. Red is overtly associated with the element fire. And so, that's one way you can sort of think about red as like, what do you not want to burn down in your house? You know what I mean? Let's not burn down the baby's room, because it's overtly associated with fire. It's associated with the time of day, noon. It's associated with the direction south. And it's got an intensity to it. It's attractive. It's considered in feng shui attractive to energy. What you were saying about how it makes your eye kind of make that shape. I'm so not surprised, because in feng shui, red is used in a lot of different ways. If you're looking for a color for your front door, red is a great color for your front door because it's attractive to energy. And what is energy? Well, it's people. People is the energy that's running through your house, your cats, your dogs, and you. You're the energy that's flowing through your space. And so red is attractive in the sense that it's going to pull your eye. I don't know if it's an urban legend or not, but allegedly, red cars are more expensive to insure.
Yes, they are.
For that reason, because they are literally more attractive to other people in the sense that, I might hit you in terms of
because I'm looking at you.
Because I'm looking at it. And so red has a whole host of uses in feng shui because of that particular quality. It's great for what's called the fame and reputation area of your home. This isn't this is a series about color, so I'm not going to get into like where that is. But if you're into feng shui at all and you want to, I can point you to some books, and maybe we'll do a series about it in the future. But it's great in the fame and recognition area of a home because of that quality. It is so attractive. Fire, you want to be red hot with your fame, right? It's great for boosting energy and vitality when used appropriately. It's also very commonly used for protecting and warding off bad energy. So oddly enough, it's attractive, but it's also used to ward off negative energy.
Which goes back to our ancestors covering their dead with red clay to ward off evil spirits.
So
we've been doing this a lot.
There's a echo there for sure. It's great for, promoting good luck and celebration. It's often associated with joy and good fortune, specifically in Chinese culture. It can be used to balance. One of the things that, we're always looking to do in feng shui is, create balance between colors, but also yin and yang. And red can be used to balance if there's something out of balance. It's often used as a cure, like an actual cure. One cure that I recommend to my clients a lot of the time is tying red ribbon around pipes, plumbing pipes under the sink, coming out of the toilet, going into the toilet, wherever there's water sort of coming in and out of the house. You tie 9 inches of red ribbon around the pipe. You don't even have to see it. But the belief is that, it is attractive and it's going to slow down the flushing of your good fortune. It's going to slow down, energy leaving your space so quickly that simply the color and its attractability will slow that down. It's believed to attract positive energy and invigorate the flow of energy in the space. So red is a really cool color with all of its feng shui applications. And it's very complementary actually to everything you're saying with regards to, kind of a more classical design orientation. I always like to say about feng shui is that it's very practical. It's like once you start getting clued into different things in feng shui, you're going to be like, oh my God, it's so obvious. Like, yeah, it's obvious.
What's that saying? Where attention goes, energy flows.
Right. Red is
all about it.
The red flag, waving proudly. Moving on to kind of the planetary association. You said it earlier, Mars is the planet that red is associated with overtly. And Mars is also associated with Tuesday. And for folks who know me really well, will know that I wear red every Tuesday.
You do?
I do. I've been doing it for years. I even track it in a spreadsheet. I'm a complete mad scientist like that. But I wear red every Tuesday because, the planetary associations with the days of the week is one of the most profound, I don't know what to say about it, metaphysical hacks, I guess, that I've found in terms of linking myself to physical reality, in terms of, we say on Tuesdays, we say the day of the week it is all the time. We see it in emails. We see it on our phones whenever it says Tuesday right there. And so I like to lean into the fact that it's Tuesday by wearing red. Now, red is also a very activating, borderline confrontational color as well. And so that's where it's helpful to know that pink still counts.
It does. Well, where are you the aggressive red?
Right.
Or are you the gentle red?
Are you the gentle red?
Which one? Are you choosing violence today? Or are you choosing kindness?
Exactly. And so, the planetary astrology here is that, Tuesday is red day. And so finally, we're kind of landing the plane here on the color red. I feel like, we're just sort of scratching the surface of the color. Of course we are. But I thought it would be fun for us to go back and forth. You know, this was our little homework, and we have not compared notes. Okay, I have no idea what you're going to say.
I'm so excited for this part.
You don't know what I'm going to say.
Waiting for this.
But we're going to go back and forth, and we're going to talk about red as the embodied goddess. Okay?
Okay, I'm going to start with the obvious.
Okay, go.
Which is our dear Aphrodite,
Okay.
who is love, passion, romance. She embodies red from the pinks to the deep reds.
My first red goddess is going to be Durga. And tell us. Hindu protection goddess.
Yeah.
She is the OG warrior mother. Read up on Durga if you don't know about her. She's often depicted wearing red. Okay, so now you can.
All right, my next one is Artemis, the huntress. So the blood. She's protector of women and children. She's the eternal virgin. She's associated with period blood, but also the blood of the hunt.
Cool. Okay, I'm going to counter you with Red Tara, Tibetan goddess of transformation who controls magic and alchemy. The interesting thing about Tara is that she comes in many shades. There's actually 21 sort of shades of Tara.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Red being one of them. So we'll get to some of the others.
Yeah, she pops up.
They're peppered in here. But Red Tara, I put in my red category. Okay.
Okay, we got Freya. Freya, who's the goddess of war, celebration, and sexuality. She actually is associated with red and black, which are power colors, ma'am.
Awesome. Okay. My next one is Pele, Hawaiian volcano goddess who rules fire.
Yes.
Okay. Chosen for all the obvious reasons.
Okay. Hestia, goddess of architecture. She is the goddess of the hearth, the home, the living flame. Her symbol is the circle, and she is dark rose colors.
Cool. Okay. My next one is Lakshmi, Hindu goddess of prosperity. She's associated overtly with red, but also gold. So I guess I could have thrown her in the yellow category as well. But I have her with red. Lakshmi is overtly red.
Okay. My last one is Isis. So she's an Egyptian goddess. She's the goddess of alchemy, magic, and transformation.
Cool. Okay. My last one is, she goes by two names, depending on where you are. If you're in Africa, she's called Oya. If you're in South America, she's called Iansa. This is a Yoruban goddess of the weather, essentially an Orisha of the weather. She's mostly associated with darker shades of red, like, maroons and things like this. But in all of the imagery, she's usually wearing a bright red dress. So I chose her for that reason as well. So fascinating. Okay, anything else to say about red before we move on to another episode and the color orange?
Well, there's so much to say about red, but I feel like we've covered how deeply ingrained it is in our human nature, not just in our surroundings and our food, but also in our bodies and how we react to it. So I would encourage everyone to look around and see where red pops up in your surroundings.
Your house, your home, your body, your clothes,
your food.
Just see. Yeah, your food. Yeah. All right. You're listening to the Living Mandala podcast.